Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, can you just turn on your video, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Perfect. It looks pretty fine. Thank you, Prabhu. If you're ready, then I can just give a brief introduction before we start the class, Prabhu. Can we start, Prabhu?
Sorry, Prabhu, I couldn't hear you. Can you come in?
I was just saying that if you're ready, then we could just start.
Yes, Prabhu, sure. Yeah.
Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya on a Saturday morning. We're just continuing with Srimad Bhagavatam 4th Canto, chapter 24, which talks about the chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. Then we have the privilege of having His Grace Bandhu Madhava Prabhu with us, who will be sharing the nectar of verses 19 and 20. Over to you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thanks, Prabhu.
Prabhu, let me know if I have to share the shloka. I will do that.
Yes, sure, Prabhu. That will be helpful.
Sure, Prabhu.
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan Nitya ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Mukam Karoti Vacharam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. Will it be possible for you to share the screen, Prabhu? Yes, thank you very much. Okay, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 19 today. Maitreya Vacha Prachetas. Give me a second. Prachetasa Piturvakyam Shirasadhaya Sadhava Disham Pratichim Prayayus Tapasya Adratha Chetasa. Word meaning. Maitreya Vacha, the great Maitreya continued to speak. Pracheta, all the sons of King Prachinibarhi, Pitu, of the father, Vakyam, words, Sirasha, on the head, Adhaya, accepting, Sadhava, all pious, Disham, direction, Pratichim, western, Prayayu, went away, Tapasi, in austerities, Adritha, accepting seriously, Chetasa, in the heart. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, because of their pious nature, all the sons of Prachi Nibarhi very seriously accepted the words of their father with heart and soul. And with these words on their heads, they went towards the west to execute their father's order. Purport. In this verse, Sadhava, meaning pious or well behaved, is very important, especially at the present age. It is derived from the word sadhu. A perfect sadhu is one who is always engaged in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prachinibarhi's sons are described as sadhava because of their complete obedience to their father. The father, king, and spiritual master are supposed to be representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, they have to be respected as the Supreme Lord. It is the duty of the father, the spiritual master, and the king to regulate their subordinates in such a way that they ultimately become fully unalloyed devotees of the Supreme Lord. That is the duty of the superiors, and it is the duty of the subordinates to obey their orders perfectly and in a disciplined way. The word Shirasha, on their head, is also significant, for the Prachetas accepted the orders of their father and carried them on their head, which means they accepted them in complete surrender. We'll read the next verse also. Text 20. Sa samudram vistirnam apashayan samahata sara mahan mana iva swacham prasanna salilashayam. Synonym, word to word meaning. Sa samudram, almost near the ocean. Upa, more or less. Vishtiram, very wide and long. Apashyan, they saw. Sumahat, very great. Tara, reservoir of water. Mahat, great soul. Mana, mind. Iva, like. Acham, clear. Prasanna, joyful. Salila, water. Ashriyam, taken shelter of. Translation. While traveling, the Prachetas happened to see a great reservoir of water which seemed almost as big as the ocean. The water of this lake was so calm and quiet that it seemed like the mind of a great soul, and its inhabitants, the aquatics, appeared very peaceful and happy to be under the protection of such a watery reservoir. Purport. The word Sa-samudra means near the sea. The reservoir of water was likely a bay, for for it was not very far from the sea. The word upa, meaning more or less, is used in many ways, as in the word upapati, which indicates a husband more or less, that is to say, a lover who is acting like a husband. Upa also means greater, smaller, or nearer. Considering all these points, the reservoir of water which was seen by the Prachetas while they were traveling was actually a large bay or lake. And unlike the sea or ocean, which has turbulent waves, this reservoir was very calm and quiet. Indeed, the water was so clear that it seemed like the mind of some great soul. There may be many great souls, jnani, yogis, and bhaktas or pure devotees are all called great souls, are also called great souls, but they are very rarely found. One can find many great souls amongst yogis and jnanis, but a truly great soul, a pure devotee of the Lord, who is fully surrendered to the Lord, is very rarely found. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. Bhagavad-Gita 7:19. A devotee's mind is always calm, quiet, and desireless because he is always anya abhilashita shunyam, having no desire other than to serve Krishna as his personal servant, friend, father, mother, or conjugal lover. Due to his association with Krishna, a devotee is always very calm and cool. It is also significant that within that reservoir, all the aquatics were also very calm and quiet. Because the disciples of a devotee have taken shelter of a great soul, they become very calm and quiet and are not agitated by the waves of the material world. This material world is often described as an ocean of designs. In such an ocean, everything is agitated. The mind of a great devotee is also like an ocean or a very large lake, but there is no agitation. As stated in Bhagavad-Gita, Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana. Those who are fixed in the service of the Lord are not agitated by anything. It is also stated in Bhagavad-Gita, Yasmin Stito na dukkena gurunapi vichalayet. Even if he suffers some reversals in life, a devotee is never agitated. Therefore, whoever takes shelter of a great soul or a great devotee becomes pacified. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated, Krishna Bhakti Nishkama Ataeva Shanta. A devotee of Lord Krishna is always peaceful because he has no desire, whereas the yogis, karmis, and jnanis have so many desire to fulfill. One may argue that the devotees have desire, for they wish to go home back to Godhead, but such a desire does not agitate the mind. Although he wishes to go back to Godhead, a devotee is satisfied in any condition of life. Consequently, the word Mahan Mana is said in this verse to indicate that the reservoir of water was a calm, quiet, as the mind of a great devotee. Om Tat Sat. Om Jnanatinarandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirbisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam, pangum langayate girim, yat kripa tam aham vande Shri Gurum Deenatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. So we read the fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is an amazing chapter where the Prachetas meet Lord Shiva and hear about the glories of Supreme Lord from Lord Shiva directly, who is the greatest of all devotees. So the slokas that we read is just setting the scene for that, where the Prachetas get the instruction from their father and they proceed towards engaging themselves in austerity to purify themselves. So the verses particular that we read is showing that how the Prachetas took the instructions of their father very seriously. And the purport Prabhupada actually describes that a father, a king, or the spiritual master should make sure that their descendants are becoming a devotee of Lord, the Supreme Lord. So in that manner, Prachini Varhi had instructed their sons, 10 sons. It is so interesting that most of the places, Sukadeva Goswami just finished off the whole pastime in just one line. Even in for this chapter also, Sukadeva Goswami actually just said to Parikshit Maharaj saying that the Prachetas met Lord Shiva and they received instructions from Lord Shiva about worshipping the Supreme Lord. So in one line, Sukadeva Goswami finished it. Or here in this case, Maitreya finished it. But Vidura, he stopped Maitreya and he inquired for further details about that because he found that topic to be very relevant and very important for his Krishna consciousness. So in the same way, even Parikshit Maharaj many times he stopped. For example, the whole of Brahma Vimoha Leela, Sukadeva Goswami narrated in one line and then he finished it. The whole Rukmani Vivaha was actually narrated in one line and was finished it. Right. So and then the listener stopped the speaker and inquired that I want to hear more. Right. So when the listener is very enthusiastic to hear, then the speaker will be able to deliver it more. Right. Prabhupada was also, there was one incident, I just read it some time back, where Prabhupada was during a morning walk, he was feeding popcorns to swans, right? Or ducks, I don't remember. So in the lake, there were quite a few swans, and Prabhupada was feeding popcorns to them. And it so happened like Prabhupada was feeding the popcorn to same swan, one single swan he was actually feeding, instead of feeding to all of them. And when devotees actually asked Prabhupada saying why he is feeding to the same swan, why not to all the other swans also? Prabhupada actually said that this swan is very enthusiastic and eager. And so Prabhupada actually fed. So in the same way as the listener is more enthusiastic and eager to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami and Maitreya Muni, like great personalities, they were able to deliver because of their eagerness of the listener, Parikshit Maharaj and Vidura, they were able to actually deliver the pure Srimad Bhagavatam to them, right, which was helpful to us in turn. Right. So in this way, like the listener's enthusiasm actually increases or the Lord actually makes sure that the speaker becomes an instrument in the Lord's hand to deliver the message to the listener. That's what really happens. Even in the discussion between Ramanand Rai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramanand Rai actually says that I am just a string and you are vibrating that. Right? My tongue is being vibrated by your mercy. So that's how Ramanand Rai actually presented it. So the Lord actually gives the enthusiasm in the heart of the speaker, and he makes sure that the message that the eager and enthusiastic listener who is eagerly waiting for knowing more about Krishna, the Lord actually ensures to deliver that to the listener. Right? So that really happens in many cases. I'm quite sure many devotees who are going out and giving classes and trying to spread the message what Srila Prabhupada had given us. They would oftentimes, like they would prepare something for their class, but in the end of the day, they would actually speak something completely different. And they would get inspired to speak on a different topic, though they might have actually thought to speak on something else. So that quite often it happens. Many devotees had actually shared their realization of them on that sort. So that's actually an inspiration that the Lord actually brings out, so that the devotees who are listening, they get really inspired to practice Krishna consciousness even more seriously. So that's a support that the Lord actually gives, as the Lord Himself says that Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. How the Lord actually comes to help the devotees, nobody knows. Maybe the devotee might be eagerly waiting to actually receive some kind of an instruction, and the Lord actually arranges the instruction through somebody. So somebody becomes an instrument in delivering that instruction. So oftentimes it so happens like that, that uh, even in this case, Maitreya Muni actually tried to bypass the whole incident of the Prachetas meeting Lord Shiva and Lord Shiva glorifying the Supreme Lord, the Rudra Gita. So they stopped. Vidura expressed his eagerness to actually know more, hear more about this topic, and he was not uh, uh, tired hearing it, or neither was Parikshit Maharaj tired to hear from Sukadev Goswami. They asked for finer details of everything so that they get to know. So in this particular sloka, which we read, we get to know about why the Prachetas were able to uh, get themselves absorbed fully in the instruction of their father. Right? So the purport Prabhupada told is the duty of the father to actually instruct their dependents, but it's also the duty of the dependents or the disciple to take the instruction of the superior or father or a teacher or king or a spiritual master very seriously, right? So here in this case, Prachetas were able to take the instructions of their father quite seriously because they were pious, right? Because of their piety, they were able to actually take the instructions. When we talk about pious, we talk about somebody who actually commits less sinful life, right? When their sinful life is minimum or sinful activities are reduced to a great extent, such a person will be actually able to follow the instructions of the Lord and their superiors very seriously and very strictly. So Prabhupada also says in the purports of Bhagavatam saying that a sinful life and Krishna consciousness don't go well together, right? So, or a sense gratificatory life, which is in turn sinful life, doesn't go well with Krishna consciousness, or they don't go well at all. They are in completely opposite directions. So, as long as a person actually is having a very sinful life, it is very difficult for somebody to take up the instructions of the spiritual master and put that in practice. So the Prachetas, they were able to take the instruction of their father quite seriously because they were pious in nature, right? Sadhava Prabhupada also translate, or it is translated as devotees, right? Sadhava also means pious, where the Prachetas, because they were established themselves in the mode of goodness, which is necessary, or like proper very or Bhagavad-Gita, we understand very clearly saying that out of Tama, Raja, Sattva is more conducive for Krishna consciousness, right? When a person who is in Sattva Guna, he will be able to practice the regulative principles very easily. He will not get easily distracted, not get divergent thoughts, tangent thoughts, and he will be able to practice things. Though Sattva Guna is binding, still it is conducive, right? But Krishna obviously he says that by the practice of devotional service, one will be able to rise above even all the three modes. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatita etan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That by the practice of bhakti, anya, what is that? Hmm, Prabhupada calls that as, or Krishna calls that as avyabhicharena bhakti, right? Avyabhichara. Avyabhichara means the opposite of that is vyabhachara. Vyabhachara or vyabhachari. A vyabhachari, we call a lady as a vyabhachari because she is not sticking to one male or one husband, but instead she is actually going to multiple people, right? That's what we call as vyabhachari. So avyabhichari means somebody who is not having a diverse thoughts or various masters to follow, but instead they have one master, avyabhicharena bhakti, right? They have one master to actually follow. They are not like a prostitute who goes else everywhere, every place. They only follow one master. They only follow Prabhupada or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna, and they don't have anybody else to actually look into. Such a person actually follows avyabhicharena bhakti, not vyabhachari bhakti, right? Vyabhachari bhakti will not give the real fruits. Avyabhicharena bhakti is what is really recommended by Krishna, right? So that avyabhicharena bhakti will actually make a devotee to slowly actually rise above all the three modes of material nature. So of which that obviously a devotee also needs to put some effort. A devotee also needs to make some things, put things in practice in his life. And we could see that there are several instructions in the scriptures which are actually lined up guiding a devotee to take up slowly take up to the next level and go further, so that a devotee actually will be able to practice unalloyed devotional service. Unalloyed, proper coined this, where there is no contamination, where there is no mixture of things, right? It is pure, in a pure form, practice devotional service. So that's something Prabhupada actually wants from all of us. So for that, we should also work to rise our guna. We should rise above our guna. In this particular verse, we talked about that Prabhupada was saying in the purport that a devotee is always peaceful, calm, and quiet. Quite a few times Prabhupada actually refers these words in the purport, saying that it's peaceful, calm, quiet. So how can a devotee achieve that state, which is typically achieved only in the mode of goodness, right? From Rajoguna, Tamoguna, we need to actually rise above to Sattvaguna platform, because Sattvaguna is conducive, right? We will not get into unnecessary troubles of material world by being in Sattvaguna. So it is very important that we rise above, or we take some principles of Sattvaguna, take the knowledge of Sattvaguna and practice that and apply that in life. Even in difficult situations, we need to practice that, right? So Krishna also actually explains in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita about various items of knowledge which actually helps a devotee or a sadhaka to actually rise above in his practice of Krishna consciousness. The same Prabhupada actually had put together very nicely in his book of Sri Ishopanishad, verse 10. He had put together some nice bullet points for all of us to actually get inspired, and practice that in our life, right? So we'll spend some time reading those nice instructions of Srila Prabhupada, which he has coined from the 13th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. We will just go one item after another. We will have a short discussion over that. Okay, the first item that Prabhupada says, okay, all these things are meant to actually increase our standard from Rajoguna, Tamoguna platform, move towards Sattvaguna, so that we can easily practice the Krishna consciousness which is in the platform of Shuddha Sattva, right? So that's the endeavor Our endeavor is to actually become a pure devotee of Krishna, which is what Rupa Goswami wants us to become in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, to become a pure devotee, or even in his Upadeshamrita Sindhu, he wants us to become a pure devotee, a Goswami, who is who puts his what you call his doors closed for sinful activity. That's what a Goswami means. He doesn't engage himself in sinful life. So how can we rise above the sinful life? Today, because of the influence of this material world, we might be doing a lot of sinful activities. But how can we internally and externally rise above? So these points actually help us to practice Krishna consciousness even more seriously than before. Okay, so let's quickly read them. So the first point Prabhupada says that one should become a perfect gentleman and learn to give proper respect to others. Right? One should become a perfect gentleman. So as the word itself says, gentleman. Gentleman means one who is gentle with others, not hard. Right? So we need to become a perfect gentleman, Prabhupada says. One should become. And learn how to properly respect others, which is the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also. Amanina manadina kirtaniya sadahari. Or we will be able to chant the holy name of the Lord only when we actually offer our respects to others and not expect anything in return. So that mood, we know it, but we need to put that in practice. So Prabhupada actually reminds us that we need to actually put that in practice. Right? So Prabhupada says that's why one should become a perfect gentleman and learn to give proper respect to others. And then Prabhupada says one should not post himself as a religionist simply for name and fame. Right? So we, being practicing devotees of Krishna consciousness within ISKCON, we are not supposed to actually post ourselves as an ISKCON devotee outside if our behavior is not up to the mark. It actually brings a very bad remark to whole of ISKCON society and Prabhupada. Right? So we need to make sure of it that we don't post ourselves to get some name and fame, that others should recognize me. Right? So we put tilak, we put kantimala, we put Vaishnava dress, then our behavior should also be in a similar way. Not that we externally change our attire, but internally also we need to change so that our behavior is as per a devotee. Right? So that's why Prabhupada says here that don't just pose yourself as a religionist simply for name and fame. So we are not here to actually get name and fame from outside people. We are here to get name and fame from our spiritual master, from our acharyas, from Krishna. They need to recognize us as devotees. Right? We are not working here to be recognized by outside worldly people so that we become famous there. No, that's not the purpose of we practicing Krishna consciousness. For we practice because we want Krishna to see us. Right? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also says, do your devotional service in such a way so that Krishna will see you. That is real bhakti. Right? We should show Krishna consciousness by our practice. Right? Not for some cheap adoration from materialistic people. Right? So going forward, Prabhupada then says one should not become a source of anxiety to others by actions of his body, by thoughts of his mind, or by his words. So we should not become a source of anxiety to others, either by body, words, or mind. Right? So it's something very important, because when we agitate others, they will something give it back to us for sure. That's how laws of karma work. The amount of pain that we give to others, the equal amount of pain, we will get it back. Right? So if we react to something just because others are doing something to me, then we will get it back again from somebody else or from that same person back. So it's up to us that how things go on in this world, that is not in our control. But how we react to things that is going on in the world, that is in our control. Right? So if we act in an agitating way to others, then we cannot become a devotee who is liked by Krishna that easily. Right? We need to put things in practice in our life. We are here to change our life, not the whole world. Right? That's why Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, find our own faults, not the faults of others. We are not going to become Krishna conscious by finding others' faults, but we need to become Krishna conscious by becoming finding faults on our own self. That's something very important. Right? Going forward, then the fourth point, Prabhupada says that one should learn forbearance even in the face of provocation from others. Tolerance. Tolerance is one quality. Forbearance, tolerance is one quality which will actually rise the sattva-guna. Right? If we don't practice tolerance, we cannot actually rise to sattva-guna very easily. By practice of tolerance, even in difficult situations, that's when a person actually rises to sattva-guna easily. Right? So forbearance in provoking situations, Prabhupada says. Prabhupada many times he actually says the real character of a person comes out at the time of provoking situation. What is inside comes out when things are squeezed. When we are squeezed, cornered, and put into difficult situation, that time our real Swarupa comes out. Our real nature is that, not when things are going good. Right? We cannot estimate a person when things are going good. We cannot estimate him. He's very good. When the person is cornered and squeezed and put in some difficult situation, how the person actually reacts at that time, that actually shows his nature. Right? So Prabhupada says here about forbearance even in the face of provocation from others. So then Prabhupada goes and says that one should learn to avoid duplicity in his dealings with others. Right? Even Krishna doesn't like duplicitous persons. Right? Krishna is he doesn't like such kind of people. He actually doesn't turn his face towards such people. He likes simple people. Simplicity actually is something Krishna likes, because a devotee means he's simple. He is not crooked. Though Krishna stands in a crooked way, but he likes people who is very simple. Right? So if we want to become devotees, we should not have two plans in our mind. We cannot speak something externally just to keep somebody happy, and we cannot think something internally ill or bad, or have internal plans for our own profit gains or some kind of name, fame, glory. So that plans we should not have internally and a different plan externally, or we show off that we are kind of like well-wisher for somebody, and internally we have some other plans for our own self. That is not liked by Krishna at all. So Prabhupada here says that we should avoid that. Right? The next point, Prabhupada says, 6th point, one should search out a bona fide spiritual master who can lead him gradually to the stage of spiritual realization. And one must submit himself to such a spiritual master, render him service, and ask relevant questions. Right? So we all know that accepting a spiritual master is something very important in spiritual life. There is no doubt about it, because we are all practicing devotees. Right? So if you are not aware of that, we need to read the scriptures and understand, saying that accepting a spiritual master marks the beginning. That's why it is called as initiation. So after initiation, a devotee is supposed to actually practice Krishna consciousness, hearing from the spiritual master, taking those instructions as something very, very important for his life, or the only thing which is there for his life, and then execute that for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. Right? So after initiation, that's a strive from devotee. So we all might have got initiated, but are we good disciples of our spiritual master? That we need to ask. Are we following the instructions that my spiritual master is giving? If not, we have to change. And accepting change is the most important thing in Krishna consciousness. If we are not willing to change, we cannot become devotees. So we need to change. The whole of Anartha Nivritti is to actually bring about a change in us. We cannot be as a person who we were. If we are behaving the same way as we were earlier, we will get the same result, which is Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. But if we want to find a change in our destiny, we want to become pure devotees, then we have to make a change in our life today. And in Krishna consciousness, we need to constantly change. We need to be dynamic, adaptive, so that we can constantly accept things which are favorable for Krishna's service, which is of Krishna's interest. Right? Prabhupada says the purports of Bhagavad-Gita that we should not lead a life for our own interest, but we should lead a life for Krishna's interest, keeping Krishna's interest in center. That makes somebody a devotee of the Lord. Right? So here we could see that a disciple means he works for bringing about a change in his life for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. For that sake, he is willing to change every day. Every day make some change in us so that we can become a better devotee. Right? That's the endeavor that a disciple needs to do after initiation, by putting the instructions of the spiritual master in practice. The next one Prabhupada says is, in order to approach the platform of self-realization, one must follow the regulative principles enjoined in the revealed scriptures. So, practicing the regulative principles given in scriptures are like helping us to not to commit further sinful activity which is detrimental to Krishna consciousness. So by practicing these regulative principles, we are avoiding unnecessary complications in our Krishna conscious life. The more we break the regulative principles, the more Krishna conscious becomes difficult for us. Or the more sinful activity we commit, more challenging will be for us to become Krishna conscious. Right? That's why Prabhupada says that these two don't go well together. They go ill together, Prabhupada says. Right? So going forward, one must be fixed in the tenets of the revealed scriptures. So revealed scriptures actually give us all instructions of how to lead a life in this material world. And at the end of it, be Krishna conscious. And if Krishna willing, we go back home, back to Godhead. Right? Those are the tenets of our revealed scriptures. So we need to take them as the guiding principle and lead our life in a way we see the whole world through these scriptures, Shastra Chakshu. Right? Scriptures are not only for talking, scriptures are only for practice. That one devotee was sharing me that there are so many devotees in ISKCON who can preach nicely, but there are not many devotees in ISKCON who can actually show things in example. Right? Even in our own temple, in our own congregation, we might see so many devotees who are very good preachers. But how many devotees are there who can show Krishna consciousness in example? That's a struggle, because that's not something easy. That's not something easy for a devotee to actually put things in practice and show things in example. That's very challenging. And that is the challenge we should take up and fight against our own conditioning, fight against our own mind. Our mind will not let us to change. Mind means it always wants to do the same old thing. It is conditioned to actually do the same old thing. Any change in it, it won't actually accept it. But Krishna conscious means it's very dynamic. We do everything that is needed for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. Anything, we go to any extent we may need to go to for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna, we need to do it, which means we cannot have a rigid program. Of course, we will have a rigid program for Mangalarti, morning chanting. That's a rigid program, but when it comes to serving Guru and Krishna, it's very dynamic, not static for sure. Right? So a devotee means he actually accepts changes, accepts the tenets of the revealed scriptures and keeps things in practicing and moves forward. Right? Next point, Prabhupada says, one should completely refrain from practices which are detrimental to the interest of self-realization. Right? That is what is called as molding our life. We have to mold our life in such a way so that Krishna consciousness is the topmost priority of our life. It's like in Max, they call it as a parabola, right? Where the mean is the center and everything away from the mean is called as deviation, right? So as much as if the deviations are less, or our target is to actually bring the standard deviation as less as possible. Variations should actually become less, and the mean should become more and more pointed. It should grow. That actually means a Krishna conscious life, where the mean is actually kept on in line with the scriptural instruction, guru's instruction, and there could be minor deviations here and there, but the intention is to actually bring those deviations as less as possible. That is what is a devotee, how he need to mold his life, right? Next one, Prabhupada says, one should not accept more than he requires for maintenance of the body, right? What is needed, we need to accept in this material world. If we do anything extra, it bounces back to us for sure. So we need to be quite careful in way how we are dealing this material world. If we deal it carelessly, then it actually pushes us in a very difficult situation. So we need to make sure how we deal with this material world, not getting entangled too much. Right? Then Prabhupada goes on and saying that one should not falsely identify himself with gross material body, nor should one consider those who are related to this body as his own. Obviously, this is the first instruction that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad-Gita, that we should actually rise above and see ourselves as a spirit soul, as a servant of Krishna, and act on that platform, because spiritual life begins from that platform. Spiritual life doesn't happen in the bodily platform at all, right? Spiritual life begins in the platform of as a spirit soul, as a servant. We just don't see ourselves as a spirit soul, because a Jnani also sees like that. A Jnani is also, he is like those who are in the Brahman platform, they also see, saying that we are Brahman, we are spirit souls. So if we see simply like that, that we are Brahman, we are spirit soul, that doesn't make us different from a Jnani. Because our specific thing as a devotee is that we are servants of Krishna. And we should always know that we are servants, we are here to do service. Right? Our duty is to actually serve. So we should never think, though we may be a Bhakti Vriksha leader, we may be a sector servant or a circle servant or some commander in the temple, whatever position we may be, these are all actually a service for us. They are all service that we are doing. We are serving as a Bhakti Vriksha leader to 10 people. We are serving as a sector servant to 50 people. That's a service we are doing. We are below them actually. That's what servant means. We are below them and serving them to the best of our capacity. As we grow in Krishna consciousness means we are going more and more a servant, and we are serving more and more devotees. That's what it really means. So when we have some recognizing position within our society, within ISKCON, actually means that we are actually becoming a servant for pure devotees. Servant to Srila Prabhupada, servant to the Supreme Lord. So it's a servant, and we are doing service. And we should not miss that consciousness. The moment we forget that consciousness, all aparadha happens. Vaishnava aparadha, Seva aparadha, every aparadha happens by forgetting our real constitutional position as a servant. Once we forget that, all problem starts, right? So then Prabhupada says, one should always remember that as long as he has a material body, he must face miseries of repeated birth, old age, disease, and death. There is no use in making plans to get rid of these miseries of the material body. The best course is to find out the means by which one may regain his spiritual identity. The Prabhupada says here, saying that whatever effort you put, still you will suffer in this material body, because material world is designed so that everybody suffers here. Dukkha alayam. It is designed to suffer. Even if we take so many steps to escape from it, the suffering will come us. It will put us in a miserable situation in some other form. That's all. There's no escape. Nobody can escape from getting miserable in material world. In fact, all these miseries are coming to us so that we can surrender to Krishna. The more we actually see miseries as an opportunity to surrender Krishna, then that actually helps us. That's how Kunti Maharani saw. Kunti Maharani saw problems, calamities as opportunities to remember Krishna. That's how we also need to see. Problems are opportunities, basically. They are opportunity to become more serious in Krishna consciousness, more closer to Krishna. We need to chant Hare Krishna more seriously when problem comes. We need to read Srila Prabhupada books so that we remain in good consciousness even in difficult situations. So we need to increase our Krishna consciousness when things don't go well. That's the prescription that scriptures are giving us. Then the next point Prabhupada says, one should not be attached more than necessary of life required for spiritual advancement. So obviously, attachment to material things is not good for us to advance. That's why Rupa Goswami also says, Ati Ahara, Prayasa, Prajalpa, these things are detrimental to Krishna consciousness. Rupa Goswami says that very clearly. We all know that. Right? Eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than necessary, over enduring for something material, those are all actually are detrimental. The next point Prabhupada says that one should not be more attached to wife, children, and home than the revealed scriptures ordain. So attachment to wife, children, home is not condemned. Attachment more than what is prescribed in the scriptures is condemned. Right? Scriptures are not saying don't be attached to family. Right? We can be attached to our wife, we can be attached to the family, we can be attached to our children, knowing well, saying that they are also spirit soul, they are also struggling inside that material body, whether a female body or a male body, they are struggling inside that body. And as much as possible, let me actually help them so that they will also become Krishna conscious. Right? So that's the purpose of staying as a grahastha, as a family. Stay together, work together, so that all become Krishna conscious together. That's the program. That's the program of ashrama, keeping Krishna as the center. Right? So grahastha ashrama, all of them work together with the same goal for helping each other, becoming more Krishna conscious, so that Guru and Krishna becomes pleased with us. That's the intention of staying together as a grahastha, not for, Prabhupada says, not for scratching each other's back and giving pleasure, right? That is not the purpose of staying together. Then Prabhupada says that one should not be happy or distressed over desirable and undesirables, knowing that such feelings are just created by the mind, right? So mind actually is the biggest cheater. Mind actually cheats us. Mind says that I like this, I don't like this. That's what the nature of mind is. It gets attracted to something pleasurable and it's aversion to something not pleasurable. Friend means the persons who actually support my sense gratification, they are my friend. Persons who are against my sense gratification, against my likings, they are enemies to me. I will not go with them. Right? Those are all our thoughts coming in the mind, and mind will bring such thoughts. Those are all challenges for us to actually face and rise above that level of consciousness. That's the endeavor for us, to somehow ignore the mind and practice a level of consciousness higher than that, which is Krishna consciousness. Right? We have to rise above that platform. We cannot remain in the platform of mind, and it is going to cheat us. Right? Mind is the greatest cause of all problems. Even Avanti Brahmana in the 11th chapter, he says, 11th canto of Bhagavatam, he says that our own friends, our own family members, our own relatives, not our own body or this material nature or the devatas, they are not the cause of our problems. The only thing that is cause of all our problems is our own mind. But it's the nature that we actually need to point at somebody when problem rises. We point at somebody, because of this person only I am put in trouble. That's the nature. We actually go and keep pointing to others. But Avanti Brahmana has learned, after looking at the whole situation of this material world, he has learned saying that all the problem is because of our own mind. That's his real realizations. Right? Realization, when we practice Krishna consciousness, we should get realizations. We should realize saying that this material world is actually trying to bind me more and more, and I need to practice Krishna consciousness more and more to come out of it, be in Krishna consciousness. So that's the effort that we are actually putting in. So in Krishna consciousness, that even Prabhupada actually says in the Nectar of Instruction preface, saying that whether somebody is trying to become a yogi or a jnani or a bhakta, controlling senses and mind is very essential for all the practices. Any path of spiritual transcendental life, controlling mind and senses is very essential, Prabhupada says in the preface. Right? So the best way to control mind, we cannot control it, obviously, because it is superior to a conditioned soul for sure. The only thing that we can do is we can ignore the mind. That's the best way. We should not take mind's thought very seriously. That's the best way to actually go forward. Keep ignoring it. You are a foolish guy. You will keep giving me some thoughts, but I'm here to follow what my spiritual master says. That's how we need to actually go forward. Okay, so moving forward, running out of time. One should become an unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and serve him with rapt attention. Right? So that is something we all know. I don't want to spend time on that. One should develop a liking for residing in a secluded place with a calm and a quiet atmosphere favorable to spiritual culture, and one should avoid congested places where non-devotees congregate. Right? We should have a liking to stay with devotees. That's most important thing. Staying in a secluded place is not really safe for us. Being a conditioned soul, it is very important for us that we be in association of devotees. And the last point Prabhupada says is one should become a scientist or a philosopher and conduct research into spiritual knowledge, recognizing that spiritual knowledge is permanent, whereas material knowledge ends with the death of the body. So Prabhupada says here that we should all become scientists or philosophers and conduct research on spiritual knowledge. That's something very important, that we should conduct research on spiritual subject matter, know more about ourselves. That is what a self-realization means. How this senses mind are disturbing me. It is taking me away from Krishna consciousness. How each and every incident that we come across in our life, we can put that in practice and see, observe it as an outsider and see how mind and intelligence are actually putting us in tough times. So when we see as an outsider and do a research on ourselves, that is what is real self-realization. And we should connect everything to Krishna, seeing Krishna Sambandha to everything of this material world and engage them in Krishna's service. That's the effort that we are putting in. Okay, so in the interest of time, I will stop here. We have just 2 more minutes, I believe, to conclude. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And if any devotee would like to comment, I saw Narahari Chaitanya Prabhu also here. So if any devotee would like to comment something or have any questions, if we have time, I can try to solve that.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for the wonderful nectar and making it very practical in terms of how, as a devotee, one should aspire to do many things and put it to practice. Thank you so much, Prabhu. I've just unmuted the line, so I will just request devotees to feel free to ask their questions or share their comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Wonderful lecture. and a lot of the points we know, which it is a sort of revision for us to follow it. As you have rightly said, we only preach, but we don't follow. But always we say achar vichar. We have to follow whatever we do it. I have one small doubt, Prabhu. You said about the anxiety. It will be actually prejudice sometimes about a person. Like even if the person talks, the sight of the person, you get excited. We don't even bother to listen to what that person says. The moment you say, you get excited. How to control such emotions?
Okay, so that's also a trick of mind. As when you say prejudice, that itself means that we all carry some experience in our mind, and as soon as we see a person, as soon as a person talks, we bring in all the past experience of ours with that person and compare or put everything in the scale and monitor the person with our experiences. So that's what is actually a conditioned life means. We are already conditioned, and in that conditioned state, we are seeing the whole world. So the best way is to actually go blank. Anytime we go, just like even Lord Jesus Christ also says, right, that condemn the sin, not the sinner. So in the same way, we should not stamp a person saying that he is like this, because we all are devotees and we are not like how we were 2 years before, 4 years before, 10 years before. We might be a completely different person and now we have changed. In the same way, every devotee is changing in Krishna consciousness, and we should give scope and opportunity and to recognize saying that they are also changing. All the devotees are chanting 16 rounds. All of them are actually struggling to improve. And we should give with an open mind. We should actually see that this devotee has changed and he is changing, and I should actually accept him as a new person. So that's how we need to actually see the world. We should not actually bring out our previous experiences when we meet a person. Of course, we can see, we know that such and such person has this nature, and it's not that easy to come out of acquired natures very easily. But we should always give a scope to observe others with a fresh mind. And if we notice that a such and such person has actually made some kind of advancement in his consciousness, in his behavior, in his attitude, we should be ready to actually erase all the bad experiences we had with that devotee and accept them as something new, fresh. Because we are changing, they are also changing for sure. And Krishna is helping every devotee. Everybody, Krishna is helping them, and everybody is actually undergoing difficult times and learning lessons and changing. And we should also be ready to accept it. We should not keep sticking to the past that we have seen. We should accept changes in life for sure. That's some suggestion I could give, Mataji, for that.
What if that person is not in Krishna consciousness, not a devotee?
Still, we need to give them opportunity, because even if they are not devotees, they are under the purview of Krishna. Everybody is under the umbrella of Krishna. And Krishna actually teaches lessons to everybody, whether somebody is devotee or non-devotee. They constantly learn things in this material world. But we may not be expecting a great change in them. But looking people with prejudice is not good actually for us.
Yes.
Because it actually spoils the whole relationship. We might be very duplicitous with them, because internally we may have a different thought about them, and externally we may actually behave with them differently. So which is not good for our Krishna consciousness also. So we can actually open the doors and accept them as they are today than as they were yesterday.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thanks, Mataji. Hare Krishna. I think should we stop here, Prabhu? Sankarshan Priya Prabhu or Ravi?
Yeah. So Prabhu, let me just quickly read. There were a few comments which is come from Saraswati Mataji saying, Hare Krishna Dandavad Pranams. thanks for the simple instructions. So they like it very much. Radhika Mataji also said that Hare Krishna Prabhu, nice and practical points. Then we have Hare Chaitanya Prabhu, who also said that it's nectar. Thank you for sharing your nectar. Prabhu, I just had one quick question I would just put here. We talked about a very important point that Krishna consciousness is all about bringing constant changes, right? But generally, change has to be, consistent. You have to sustain in the long run. So, what would you typically recommend to make sure that should we change very often, quickly, or how can for the long term point of view, is it better to go steady? I mean, what would be your suggestion for that?
Yeah. First change that we need to accept is to accept change, right? That's what something more important, because as long as we are not accepting changes, we want to be rigid and we want to be following the same old thing that we are practicing, then Krishna consciousness becomes difficult. So the first change we need to bring is to accept change. And as and when we see a change that is coming in front of us, which is practical, doable for us, we should actually implement those, because they are doable for us already. So we should try to implement those doable changes first, so that we can bring some level of real practical change in us there. And some things would obviously be difficult because we have acquired nature from 3 modes, from several janmas, and some nature's bad habits might be quite difficult for us to actually change. For example, even I came across some devotees who are like, because of this use of smartphone, they are kind of addicted to watch YouTube videos. So what we recommend them is saying that for 1 week, you stay away from internet in your life. Don't touch your smartphone at all. Don't watch any videos. 1 week, you actually do something. Then by trying out that, the habits actually change. Because 1 week, if we get up early in the morning, we chant along with the devotees of the Lord. I'm quite sure in ICC also there are some japa groups that are happening online. So we chant along with devotees. Because we are not spending time with watching unnecessary videos, we can get more time reading proper books. So when we see some and do some positive things as a replacement for our old bad habits, which are very strong and stubborn, then by putting things in practice for 1 week, we will see that was so much beneficial for me. And when we see the results that are coming in, which are very conducive, positive, then that gives the inspiration for us to actually give up those hard habits, which are very difficultly rooted inside us. That's the way to actually help ourselves. We should forcibly accept some things for a limited period of time, implement them, and see the changes in us, experience it, and then accept it as our life for the rest of the life, kind of. So that's the best way I could think of. Prabhu. Few devotees also suggested to me like that way. So thought of sharing that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. I'll just pause and ask if there's any last question we can just take. Okay, looks like no other question at this point from Prabhu. So we'll just end the session here with the Vaishnava.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for
Thank you, Prabhu.
accepting to give your association. It was a wonderful class with day-to-day tips that we can follow. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the opportunity, Prabhu. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari.
Well, we have